Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for the City of Social Circle, August 25th. We have a few items on the agenda tonight. There are some rules to remember for a public hearing. Public hearing begins. We'll have an opportunity. We'll have 10 minutes total to speak. He or she may reserve time for rebuttal should it be necessary. After the applicant has their presentation, I'll open the meeting to those who would like to speak in favor of the request. Those who like to speak in favor of the request will come up to the podium, will state your name and address. You'll have a total of 10 minutes. Not 10 minutes each person, but a total of 10 minutes to speak for those who would like to speak in favor for. When all members have spoken who would like to speak in favor for, I'll call those members who would like to speak in opposition of this request. Likewise, you'll have a total of 10 minutes, not 10 minutes each. We'll close the public hearing. If there's any questions that the Planning Commission have of staff, we'll ask them at the time and we'll deliberate upon the request. So we'll move along to our number one, which is consideration of the Planning Commission minutes of the June 23rd meeting. We've all had an opportunity to review those minutes. If there's any notes that need to be made of those minutes, please state so. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. The next item is regular minutes from the July 28th meeting. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to, Mr. Gaither, was that to approve the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as posted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Just for the record's sake, the agenda doesn't show this, but we do have a quorum with 2 members missing tonight. If we'll start on the end and state your name for the record.
Sonora Jackson.
Maureen Phillips.
Adolphus Gaither.
Scott Gaither.
Mike Griswold.
Thank you. Moving into public hearing item, this is an application for a subdivision for Poplar Forest. This is the sketch review. This item's been before us a couple times. Went before the City Council. City Council sent it back to us for the applicant to address some errors that were made on it for the previous time. So here it is before us again. Ms. Barbara, if you'd like to walk us through this item.
We have a list that's in our sketch, in our subdivision ordinance that require the sketch review. This is a 3-part process. Like you said, it goes through the sketch approval first, then the preliminary, and then the final. There were some items that the Planning Commission denied approval on the sketch plat in June. That they needed more information. And then we do have a completed sketch plat based on the requirements in the subdivision ordinance. I'm going to read those 11 items. It's the name and address, including the telephone number or of legal owner of property, which is included. Citation of any existing legal rights of way, easements affecting the property, it's included. Existing covenants on the property, if any. There was none indicated, but today we received a rough draft. Name and address, including telephone number of the professional person or persons responsible for the subdivision design, for the design of public improvement and for surveys is included. Description, location of property by the government lot, section, city, county, graphic scale, north, hour, and date included. Location of property lines, existing easements, burial grounds, railroad right-of-ways, water courses, and existing wooded area, or significant trees 24 inches or more in diameter. measured 4 feet above ground level, and the location, width, and names of existing or planted trees or other public ways within or immediately adjacent to the track. That's included. Location, size, elevation, and slopes of existing sewer, water mains, culverts, and other underground structures within the track and immediately adjacent thereto. Existing permanent buildings and utility poles on or immediately adjacent to the site, and utility right-of-ways. It's included. Appropriate topography at the same scale of the sketch plat. It's included. The appropriate location and width of proposed streets. Existing streets is included. The preliminary proposals for connection with existing water supply and sanitary sewer systems or alternate means of providing water supply and sanitary waste treatment and disposal, preliminary provisions for collecting and discharging surface water drainage is included. The appropriate location, dimensions, and area of all parcels of land proposed to be set aside for park, playground use or other public use, or for the use of property owners in the proposed subdivision. There's none proposed. The location of flood hazard areas taken from the HUD FEMA maps is available, if available, and it's included. Zoning of subject property and adjacent properties is included. The location of all general topographical features and the appropriate slopes, both present and proposed. Additionally, any changes to be made affecting soil erosion and sedimentation that will be caused by grading, including information as to the conditions of soil types within the subdivision, showing the relationship between soil limitations and dwelling density within the subdivision. It's included. No general grading changes are indicated. All construction must comply with erosion and sediment control regulations. Information and data relating to the surface water runoff as it affects stormwater drainage and impact on adjacent areas. The sketch plat indicates a proposed stormwater management facility with general information. The stormwater report, stormwater management facility design, outlet structure, details, the storm routing per the City of Social Circle and Georgia EPD standards would be included in a more detailed preliminary plan step for the process. The vicinity map showing the streets and other general developments of the surrounding area. The sketch plat will show all school and improvement district lines with the zones properly designated, and it's included. I'll be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Barbara, right quick. It is zoned R25, which requires a minimum lot area of 25,000 square feet, minimum dwelling unit size of 2,400 square feet, setback 35 feet from interior roads on the front, 15 on the side, and 20 from the rear. That is correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and that all dwelling units shall have a garage containing no less than 420 square feet, designed to contain no less than 2 automobiles. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And I know at one point we had talked as a committee, as a commission, about some conditions, and I believe those conditions were provided to the applicant. Has there been any discussion between the staff and the applicant about some of those potential conditions?
No, Sir Chairman. The only thing we got today was the covenants that they provided today, and I don't think all of you have had a chance to read all of those, but some of those items are addressed in the covenants. But in the final stages, or preliminary and final stages, there would be an agreement with the Social Circle government and the developer to have whatever conditions you may wish to provide.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions of staff at this time? Thank you, Barbara.
Okay.
Mr. Doster?
Good evening. My name's Stanton Porter. Again, I know I spoke, I believe this is the third time that this project's been in front of you, and I spoke the first time, and then Mr. Doster came I couldn't make it the second time, but I'll be brief. I'm not going to go back through everything that I said then, but did want to just sort of highlight a few things this evening. I think that you actually said it best the very first time I came, that just remembering what the process is here, I do a lot of rezones, and so usually I'm coming forward and really trying to convince like why a piece of land should be, used to develop. But the city here has actually already said, this is a piece of land, by having it zoned R25, this is a piece of land that the city in its planning has said is a residential area. Now, you've created this process that we have to go through, and it's a multi-step process that sort of requires people that want to build any subdivision to put forth a lot of planning. It's not, developments aren't just thrown together haphazardly. Instead, there's a lot of intention and planning, and it creates a better community for what's being built, but also for everybody else that's already here. In sort of keeping that in mind, I think the question tonight for this step, this initial step, is does the sketch plan that's been presented with the revisions, does it meet those requirements that just went through? And the answer to that is, at this point now, yes, it does. I think when it was before you last time, there were a couple of issues, and so the recommendation that was made was for denial. Those were corrected before it went in front of the city council, but instead of them taking a vote on it, they wanted it to go back and everybody here to have a chance to review the sketch plan with those changes. And so that way, if the city council were to approve it, it'd be based on your approval or disapproval or recommendation based on looking at the exact same thing that they're looking at. So I think in keeping all that in mind, now we have a plan that can check off this first requirement. Going forward, then we're going to have to do more sort of presentation and more development of this project. In relation to the question that you just had about the certain conditions, we haven't reached out to set forth exactly which one of those conditions we would be okay with and not be okay with. I would say, just sort of generally speaking, that the majority of them don't have a particular issue with the moment. In fact, a number of them already are required based on this, the square footage that's required by the zoning itself, the garages that are required by the zoning itself. And so it's not that as a development we're opposed to having any conditions placed on the houses that are being built. I think that probably, what those are, is probably better reserved for as the project gets a little more developed. Your requirements for the sketch plan literally say it can be drawn out by hand on a piece of paper. And so just sort of thinking that that's the stage that we're at, this 10,000-foot aerial view, I just don't think that we're at the point where we're saying we absolutely can agree or disagree, whether it's from the city's perspective or from a development perspective with some of the different conditions. And so what we'd say is tonight, and sort of asking that the recommendation that you make is that it be recommended to be approved, just the sketch plan review. So it's not construction starting after the next city council meeting, but that the sketch plan be approved, and that there be some recommendation that the developer and the city work towards an agreement on conditions that protect the interest of both this development, but then also the kind of houses that the city wants to see and this community wants to see. So that's what the recommendation that I hope that everybody here can make, versus us trying to decide whether the front porch is 6 by 8 or 8 by 8 or the exact material for the siding, or how many different floor plans are used in the project itself. So I'm going to reserve the rest of the time. I don't know how much time I have left, but reserve whatever little time I have left for any rebuttal or questions that somebody may have later.
You have approximately 5 minutes remaining. I apologize. I appreciate you pointing that out about the sketch plat and the process of the sketch plat. Just so you know and your client knows, we do take the sketch plat very seriously, as it is a step in our process. There's not a lot of jurisdictions that have this step, but it gets this in front of the city gets in front of the citizens. But yes, the idea behind the conditions and the reason why we talked about conditions from the very beginning is so that you realize that we know builders and developers build and develop to the minimum standards, and we want to make sure that our minimum standards are set, that we're proud of what is being built and welcoming to our community. With that said, if there's anyone who would like to speak in favor of this request besides the applicant, please come up to the podium now. Ma'am, if you'll state your name and address for the record, please.
Certainly. Good evening to the Planning and Corridor Commission, ladies and gentlemen. I am Olivet James Robinson of 1030 Shadow Creek Way, Greensboro, Georgia. I am a member of the Mars Hill Baptist Church, which is located at 387 West Hightower Trail and backs up to the proposed development, Poplar Forest. As a representative of the Mars Hill Baptist Church, I stand to inform you of our support. We feel that this development will benefit the community in a multiplicity of ways. One, it will increase the tax base for the city of Social Circle with homes in the mid to upper 300,000s. Two, the residents will be family-oriented, good citizens, thereby adding to the character and harmonious development of the city. Three, with the addition of citizens moving to Social Circle, perhaps our membership base will also increase. We, the members of the Mars Hill Baptist Church, strongly recommend the approval of this proposed development. Thank you for your time and your utmost consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition of this request?
My name's Andrew Dykes, live at 366 Branham Circle, which backs up to this proposed development. And just as a background, over 20 members of our Squirrel Woods community met last night, and as a group came up with our list of concerns to address, and out of respect for the time constraints, we have put them in one document, and I was nominated to present this to y'all. So, our reasons for opposing the development fall under three categories: the existing sewage, stormwater issues, and a poorly prepared application for a sketch plan. Under sewage, existing issues that have been addressed or already acknowledged is root intrusion into the existing sewage lines, multiple sewage spills over the years, existing sewage lines run through yards and driveways of the proposed development. The Spearman Pumping Station appears to be the most impacted by the proposed development. According to the Turnip Seed Engineers project conducted for the city, the Spearman Pumping Station is already having inflow and infiltration. The sewage lines leading to Spearman show holes in sewer pipes, root intrusion in sewer pipes, and root intrusions at a manhole. Sewage spills could impact Stroud's Creek, which is on the National Inventory of Wetlands. Second category, stormwater issues. The adjacent area has existing stormwater issues around Branham Woods. Arbor Glen development was a combined effort with the developer and the city to improve existing stormwater conditions on Gabriel Way and Branham Circle. Stormwater issues were improved for a couple of properties on Gabriel Way. However, conditions became worse for some Branham Circle residents. Additional areas developed more significant stormwater issues as a result of the Arbor Glen development that still exists today. There appears to be no solid plan for the potential stormwater issues created by the Poplar Forest proposal. A detention pond and extra drains was supposed to be the solution for the Arbor Glen development. It's doubtful that appears to be a less aggressive plan would work to eliminate stormwater drainage issues related to Poplar Forest. And a general question amongst our residents was, how would the detention pond be maintained? The third area of concern were questions concerning the application for sketch plan, which were obtained from the city. So on packet page 8, the attachment is labeled preliminary utility plan with due south sheet listed as 1 of 2, no sheet listed as 2 of 2 with the above label was provided. Packet page 10, application for sketch plan review, signed 8/23/2019, lists the zoning as R15, R22. Packet page 17, application for subdivision, not dated and no date for commission expires for notary public was on the page. Packet page 18, application for subdivision, zoning classification requested is blank. Name of applicant is Clay Stevens. It's noted that a Clay Stevens is listed as an operations manager for Due South. Packet page 24, Due South labeled subdivision sketch plan with 2 revision dates listed under changes and labeled page 1 of 3, no page 2 of 3 or 3 of 3 were present. And during the May 26th Planning Commission meeting minutes, Chairman Gaither stated that the, in quote, conditions could be recommended, like they could be 6 different elevation and no cookie cutter, side garage entrances, buffer landscaping, end quote. Additionally, the chairman indicated there would need to be a flow test with water, sewer, and gas line improvement, which leads the commission to the decision they would need more information. The gas line improvements and buffer zone are not addressed in packets page 25 through 27. As a group, the request going forward, first, put the project on hold until existing sewage issues, stormwater drainage issues, and the application details are resolved. 2, have a meeting with the developer to seek input from the surrounding stakeholders. And 3, suggest resubmitting a proposal with the accurate and consistent info. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I do have a question.
Yes,
Thank you for your notes. I'm going to pass this to Barbara.
she has a copy.
Okay, great. The questions concerning the application package, when did you receive a copy of the application package?
I will.
Or your group?
When was that pulled?
I pulled the application package off of the website.
Yes,
for
ma'am.
tonight's meeting under, agenda package.
Okay, so that was recently, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I checked it again today.
thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this request? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Oh. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I didn't see you over there.
I didn't pull her for timeout.
There's 5 minutes and 30 seconds
Yes.
remaining, ma'am.
I won't take that long. Adrian Ogletree, I live on 259 West Hightower Trail, so I'm on the crossroad. Well, we have children in high school, and they go down that street. I'm very concerned how we're going to get to school every day, because we already have plenty of traffic with the traffic circle, and you can barely get out of the driveway going to the elementary school or anything. But I'm very concerned on the daily basis, if you're adding 15 more families, hopefully families, and according to Ms. Robinson, these are going to be expensive houses. So I'm concerned about the traffic flow getting to and from the school, because you're supposed to go in the back of the school entrance, and that's right there where that's on Memorial Drive. So that's kind of a logistics nightmare from a parent's dropping kids off at school perspective. And then the other thing that I mentioned when I was at the May meeting was the green space, and I understand they have some green space in there, and I honestly can't tell from that map where it's supposed to be. I think it's that large blob on the left-hand side. But anyway, I drive through that street every night, and yesterday I saw 7 deer. 3 of them were fawns, and it has that creek running through it. It's a very beautiful wooded area. And I didn't realize our city already had it zoned for residential. But I just can't imagine having 16 homes right on that street. And I was trying to think about West High Tower Trail and Branham Circle and how many houses, how they're spaced out. And it seems kind of congested because truly Laurel Oaks and Jubilee, they're just packed in there like zzz. I mean, it's just amazing how close those very expensive houses are to each other. And so I don't know why it would benefit Social Circle, maybe from a monetary standpoint, but I think from an infrastructure standpoint, it's not really, doesn't sound beneficial. And we still have water pressures on High Tower Trail issues, and have for 30 years off and on, because the water pipes are so very old under the street. And I know the fellow who was on Forest Avenue said that he has terrible water pressure in his home. So I'm just wondering how we're gonna support that. And as a taxpayer, my taxes are kind of high, and somebody's gonna pay for all of that repairing of the sewage lines, the water lines, and all of those things. But 16 families turning their waters on to take showers and getting ready for work and school and everything, dishwashers, laundry machines, all of these things, watering the yard. I just don't see how our current infrastructure can handle all that more extra right there when we already have issues. But those are the concerns I have. And my granddaughter, when I told her, I said, well, I'm going to go to this meeting because we have the zoning thing, and talk to her about where, and she's 14 and a half, and she's like, how are we going to get to school and back? That's going to be a mess. So if a 14-year-old can figure that out, you know, we as adults ought to be able to understand, even if you have those turnarounds so that the cars are coming out front of the car and not backing out, that's still going to be a lot of people going onto the street in the mornings. And I just don't see, I can see if it was, I was trying to count how many houses are on the different sections of the street, but it just doesn't seem like it. It just seems like it's kind of squished in there. But anyways, thank you.
Thank you. There's a minute and 12 seconds left if there's anyone else who would like to speak in opposition. If not, we'll close the public hearing. You've got your remaining 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm going to address a couple of the concerns that were raised, and then also, if I have time, maybe touch on just a little bit on the conditions. In terms of development, I mean, again, after the sketch plan review, it's not just development starts. And so, but things like stormwater management, like these more expensive studies, the reason that you have the sketch plan is, well, is this an okay idea? Does it meet the requirements of the city? Then somebody like a developer can invest more heavily in these studies. In terms of sewer and potential sewer lines or people's sewer lines going across the property, obviously all easements, if somebody has a utility easement or a sewer easement that goes across any of the property, which I'm not aware of, but if those are there, those aren't going to be disturbed. I mean, that's the people have certain property rights if they have an easement across some property. So there's, you know, this isn't a case where somebody's going to be losing out on some right that they may or may not have. In regards to stormwater, I talked about this back at the very first time that I came, that this should improve the stormwater in the area. Currently, the water, the runoff that you have going down the street is just dumping straight into the creek that's there, which would not meet the requirements, state requirements now. I mean, if you were building this street now, you couldn't have that. There'd have to be some sort of, something to slow that down versus it going directly into that stream. Well, that can be remedied by doing this development and putting in the small retention pond that then the water, the runoff, I mean, that's what we're concerned about, that runoff gets collected, silt settles, and then so when it's discharged into the creek, it doesn't contain that silt. I tried to write down some of the maybe more technical considerations or requirements that were mentioned. I'm not sure if they were, the different pages that were being referenced were from tonight's packet or not, but one thing I would just state is that if something in the packet says it's page 1 of 2, as we go through this process in any kind of development, we may have an engineer or an architect draw out certain plans and do it in different ways. Well, if your requirement said they need a stormwater drawing, well, maybe that was page 1 of 2, and so that's what got attached to the packet that was presented. I'd go back to the very beginning when sort of going through those 11 requirements, they've all been satisfied, they've all been checked off, so there's nothing incomplete or missing in the application itself in terms of what the city, what your code requires, and that's sort of the question before everybody here tonight. That's been satisfied. And then a concern about with the school and traffic, this is a very minor development in terms of we're not bringing in 40, 50 homes, and have said from the beginning that they would be all, they'd all have to have a turnaround, so we don't have anybody backing into the street. And again, everybody's been on this street that's here. This is a residential area. It already has a sidewalk along one side of it. It's a slow speed limit area. We're not trying to dump a bunch of people out onto a fast-moving highway. This is a residential area. It wouldn't be that many more cars that'd be dispersed out over a morning leaving. And so I don't think that there'd be a significant impact from the traffic. And then finally, just to the conditions, again, like to reiterate that we'd like to address those later in the process, potentially working with the city as we get further into the plan. And for two things, one, some things we don't have a problem with, like a condition that says trees are planted along the sidewalk. Well, the proposed condition says within 3 feet of the back of the sidewalk. That's not a problem for the developer, but in sort of talking, that's going to be a problem long term because those tree roots are going to, if it has to be within 3 feet of the sidewalk, down the road, those tree roots are likely going to lift up the sidewalk. And so things like those conditions, the goal is you have a street that has trees along it. Well, if you put the condition that it's 3 feet, it's just not going to be good long-term for the city or the people that are living there. It's less of a concern about the developer. So there could be a little tweakings like that. There's also conditions that could be difficult to follow, like houses contain craftsman-style elements. I may have in my mind what a craftsman-style element is, and all 5 of you here may have 5 different ideas what craftsman-style elements mean. And so with any conditions that are put in place, we got to make sure that, and this is just for everybody's benefit, that we know exactly what that is, so that it's something that can be followed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any questions the planning commission has of the applicant? I appreciate you taking the time to address some of those concerns, especially the stormwater. Talk about water. I know that there's been discussions about looping the water system to some of the other areas along our infrastructure. And Adele, if you can kind of give me a thumbs up, is that discussion been had? Is that correct? Yes. Okay, so that is something that to tie into the water system, those improvements will have to be made. Gas as well. To address the concern about the traffic, that's correct. You're talking 16 cars versus a rezoning with the higher density that could bring more. The property has the right to be developed under the current zoning. This is just that step, that first initial step to get us there. I would like to read out those conditions of zoning or conditions of the approval that I would encourage this commission to consider. While it is early in the process, I think it's necessary that we talk these things through, that some of them may be important, some of them may not be, but just to get those ideas out there that this commission should consider. Obviously, compliance with all lot dimension standards of the R25 zoning district. I don't believe the applicant has any intention not to do that. The owner or developer shall be responsible for the design and installation of all infrastructure, such as but not including stormwater detention, water quality, and water conveyance, water system, sewer system, grading, sidewalk, road improvements, etc. required to accommodate the proposed subdivision of the property. A 5-foot wide sidewalk shall be constructed along the southwest side of Memorial to match that on the northeast side. Said sidewalk shall run the entire length of the road frontage of the subject property. Street trees shall be planted within 3 feet from the back of the sidewalk on both sides of Memorial. Trees shall be 2-inch in caliber at the time of planting and placed no greater than 50 foot on center. The idea behind that is those trees will become part of the right-of-way, part of the city's responsibility to maintain. All utilities, electric, telecommunications, et cetera, shall be underground. There should be at least 6 different building elevations approved of the final plat, and in no instance shall the same 2 front elevations be used immediately adjacent to or directly across from one another. That's to prohibit the cookie cutter that we see oftentimes in subdivisions. All houses shall contain Craftsman-style elements to be compatible with the surrounding area. The applicant's agent just stated about that condition, his concern about what are Craftsman-style elements. Well, he's brought up a good point about the idea that in his mind, a Craftsman-style element may be different than what the condition has envisioned. Craftsman-style element would be your front porches that extend the length of the width of the house, or tapered columns of a particular material, things of that nature that could be fleshed out later on. Exterior material shall consist of brick, masonry, stone, or siding consisted of wood or cementitious board, i.e. hardy board would be a type. All houses shall have a side entry garage. Accessory structures and detached garages shall have the same finished material as the house. All houses and detached garage shall contain a brick or stone water table of at least 30 inches in height along the front and side elevations. The front entrance to each house shall be located on the first floor level. The minimum width of all dwellings shall be 25 feet. The minimum roof pitch 4 to 12. Minimum overhang of 12 inches is required on all roof sides. All residential structures shall have a minimum 4 feet by 8 feet covered front porch and a minimum 6 by 8 back porch, patio, or deck. If elevated, the structure shall include steps that lead to the ground level, and both the landing and steps shall meet the requirements of the International Residential Code. All yards and disturbed areas associated with lot development and house construction shall be stabilized with sod prior to a certificate of occupancy being issued. And the mandatory property owners association shall be established, and said association shall be responsible for ownership, maintenance, and improvement of any and all open space, common area, and stormwater detention, conveyance, and facilities associated with the development that is not located within the public right-of-way. So those are some of the conditions that we had talked about previously, and I would think that it would behoove us to, at this stage, if this is a point where we would like to recommend that the city council approve this initial step, one of 3 steps, that these conditions at least be tied to the sketch plat, should the planning commission wish to make that recommendation. Any other discussion, any other comments, concerns, questions?
So if we do approve this and attach that, what you're saying is the master craft or whatever portion of it
The Craftsman
would be
style.
weeded out or worked out.
Just as the applicant stated that there's 2 more steps in this process, a preliminary plat and then a final plat. Between now and the final plat, I definitely believe that that some definition can be given to that Craftsman style. The idea behind that is that the house stays consistent with, the new houses stay somewhat compatible and consistent with what's around
What's
there.
in the neighborhood.
There is a lot of different architecture in the area, like you have some Queen Anne's, you have some Victorians, you have some Georgian-style homes, but we do have a lot of Craftsman, and that would seem to keep with the existing architecture in the area.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I will make the motion that we accept the plat because it's up to what it's supposed to be this time, and attach the recommendations to it.
So we have a motion by Mike Griswold to recommend approval of the Poplar Forest sketch plat with the stated conditions.
I second the motion.
And we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on to old business. Barbara, would you like to give us an update on community center?
Ms. Adele's going to update us on that. We do have a screenshot on the screen that shows the outside. This is going to be contracted through the county. The county will build this, and they will handle the permits. But I'm going to turn that over to Ms. Adele, and she can explain how this is going to take place.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. We have on the screen the elevation of the recreation center. As Barbara mentioned, this is being funded by Walton County. It was paid for under the county SPLOST that was approved last November. It will have a large gym that actually would accommodate 2 courts, an elevated walking track around the gym, and then a series of meeting rooms and offices and activity rooms in the front lower area, lower 1-story elevation area, similar to Felker Gym in Monroe. The facility will also be operated and maintained by Walton County. It's going to be located across the street from the South Walton Ball Fields, so right off Annie P. Henderson. The county has completed the design, and it was advertised for construction bid. I heard today from the county that they received over 30 bids. So they did have some attractive bids, and it is anticipated that the county would award the construction contract in August, which would set it up for groundbreaking later this fall and completion within a year.
I'm looking at an aerial of the South Walton Park. Is this in the area where there's a house that sits far back off the road?
Correct. That
Okay.
house has been demolished. So if you're going from the intersection, we have the primary school,
Yes, ma'am.
and then you cross Annie P. Henderson, and there's Stevens Park. And then the next property is this property, where the rec center will be located. And then the next property, there's a big pond on
Yes,
that is
ma'am.
also owned by the county. And the plan is that there would be the pond will be restored, and there will be a walking trail around the pond integrated with the recreation center property.
How many parking spaces, do you have any idea?
I don't know off the top of my head, but they do have parking planned to the front of the community center on their plan. But I can't tell you the number off the top of my head.
Okay. Did they ask you for input on this?
Well,
I would hope so.
We had the opportunity to review the property and the plan, and quite frankly, the city has been advocating hard for the recreation center to move forward. So we are very happy to see it moving forward, and it's a very attractive center, and what they're building is very consistent, or nicer than what has been built in the other locations in the county.
Okay. Good, thank you for the update. And any new business items?
I put new items, but actually, and they're not here, Jay Paul and Valerie, they have actually completed their planning and zoning 101.
Great.
And we hope there's going to be, I think, Mr. Gaither and hopefully a couple of others, when we do get back in classes, that they will get their 201 planning.
Fantastic.
That's all I have, Chairman. Just updating I was going to give out the certificates, but they're not here tonight.
They went to class and they think they could take a vacation already, huh? Well, thank you, Barbara. If there's no other discussion, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All those signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. Meeting over.